Hi Bother Brigade, here's what's bothering me today. This video has actually been kind of a long time in the making. So some people may remember that a while ago, back when the Ottawa occupation was happening, I decided to try and, contribute in some meaningful way to some charities. And so I made the following tweet on Twitter after discussing this and having a poll with my patrons over on Patreon. Finally off to bed now, but I have an announcement. I put it to a vote and my patrons decided overwhelmingly to donate January's income to groups/org/charities affected by the Ottawa occupation. I have also decided to match the amount, meaning we have $263.22 to work with. So that was back in February, and if you're wondering why it took so long, there was a bunch of IRL stuff happening, not only just because of the convoy, but also like personal and family issues, which I'm not even going to get into here right now. But it meant that we also had to do some research in terms of, okay, are these actually good charities? What are they doing? And like, how reliable is this information? How impacted were they by the occupation? Because there's a ton of great charities that, obviously we could donate to in Ottawa and elsewhere, but what were the ones that were most impacted? So between all these different factors, I know it's April now, but finally, we have the final list of the 6 charities that I selected. It ended up being about, just under $44 for each. So I just rounded it up to $44 that each of these following charities are getting, and they are all pretty good charities. And so the first charity on this list is Cornerstone Housing for Women. Cornerstone Housing for Women helps over 230 women every day and nearly 600 women each year transform their lives from crisis to hope, housing, and healing. They run several shelters for women in crisis or suffering from abuse or living in unsafe and uncertain housing conditions. And unfortunately, one of their main locations was right in the heart of the downtown Ottawa occupation by the Freedom Convoy. So this was a pretty easy charity to select. They're doing great work. So that's charity number 1. So let's move on to charity number 2. The Good Companions are a nonprofit multi-service senior center providing opportunities for older adults to participate in social, recreational, educational, and volunteer activities and benefit from social and health services. They're basically a seniors help center, and they definitely rely on a lot of volunteers to provide that good social interaction and enrichment and just kind of like that good socialization that is actually so crucial for a lot of seniors to have that they don't often get from families, from staff members, etc. And the pandemic only exacerbated this even further. So they, like many others on this list and other charities that we aren't even, mentioning here right now, have definitely suffered through this pandemic. And it was one that I saw a lot of people mentioning and suggesting, those in Ottawa, when people were saying, hey, we'd like to donate to some charities. What are some good charities? It was one that constantly came up in terms of, if you want to support, people in Ottawa, please consider donating to the Good Companions. And charity number 3 is the Youth Services Bureau of Ottawa, and their mission is to provide services and programs to youth in the various different neighborhoods and communities of Ottawa. They apparently have a vast range of programs and services that support at-risk youth and their families, but of course, because of the pandemic and everything, that was much harder to do, and the Freedom Convoy only exacerbated the problem. So they are, charity number 3. And there's, because of the convoy and all the, problems and distress that they were causing people, especially the residents who had to endure all the honking and the fumes and the mental anguish and sonic torture basically at all hours of the day, charity number 4 should come as no surprise to anyone. The Distress Center of Ottawa is a volunteer call center that provides suicide prevention, crisis intervention, psychological stabilization, emotional support, information, referral, and education services without judgment to individuals in need. They have been at this for over half a century at this point. They have over 200 volunteers, and they took something like over 60,000 calls in 2020 alone. Not sure what the updated numbers are, but of course they got a lot more traffic because of the pandemic and the Freedom Convoy on top of that. So it really just makes sense to also throw some dollars their way for the very important and crucial work that they've provided in the past and ongoing in the present, and especially because of the convoy. Charity number 5, and it's one that I had never even heard of before, is Kind Space. Kindspace is committed to providing Ottawa, located on unceded Algonquin territory, accessible resources, events, social and educational programming to celebrate and support people of all sexual orientations, gender identities, and expressions. I saw a lot of people on the Ottawa subreddit suggesting this as a charity that people could and should donate to and support, with many Redditors themselves pointing out how this was actually very crucial in their youth when they were first coming out and struggling with making connections and having a good, safe space and a sense of community. So again, with them being in the heart of downtown and with the Freedom Convoy, as we saw, being, you know, less than enthused about the LGBTQ community, I felt like it was very appropriate to support this charity in the wake of that terrible and fortunate series of events. And then the last charity, which again is one I hadn't heard of before, and it sounds absolutely delightful, it like really tickles the anarchist part of my heart, is highJinx Ottawa. highJinx aims to treat human beings like human beings with flaws and all. No one is perfect and we all need a hand every now and again. It's a fascinating, like it's in an old house right in the heart of downtown Ottawa, so they came immediately under occupation by the Freedom Convoy, or the Timbit Taliban, or the Flu Trucks Clan, as I like to call them. They basically run a antique shop and a volunteer like cooking kitchen. They provide meals for people, and what they sell from their antique shop directly goes to funding and supporting programs and the food program that they have to feed people in the community. And they also provide, like, using, I think possibly the building itself on the upper floors, a like safe shelter. So anyone who needs a place to stay, they can come in, and hopefully, if they have the space for it, put them up for the night. There's food. It honestly just seems very fun, very community organized. I will link a video down below from the actual co-founders themselves, just kind of explaining how it works. And they really want to get around all the bureaucratic red tape, and, you know, you need to fit into these certain guidelines, and you can't do this, and you can do this, or you need to get approval. They kind of just said, you know what? No, we're just going to start our own thing, and we're going to make it work and just provide that good old direct action that helps the immediate community. But of course, being right in the heart of the downtown Ottawa area, the convoy basically killed a lot of that, and the community didn't feel safe returning for a while. I still don't know if, you know, they've returned since then. So this is another really good charity that I wanted to support. And again, that's kind of what this has all been about, right? This was me and my patrons on Patreon. Again, overwhelmingly deciding after I made that first post in the new year of like, hey, so convoy is kind of, you know, a terrible thing. Would y'all be cool if I donated the, you know, month of January funds to charities in Ottawa to, you know, give them some love and support? And again, shout out to my patrons for being absolutely awesome. They decided overwhelmingly, yeah, absolutely, we are so here for it. And that just gave me the warm fuzzies. And I said, you know what, we got to make this even bigger. So I matched that donation and provided a little top up in the wake of it. Because, you know, it's just almost $44. So let's just make it $44 even. And I'm hoping now that people will see this. And I want people to have a couple of takeaways from this. I was going to say two, but there may be more than that. But first off, right, it's really good to see that kind of community spirit and solidarity, including for people that they may not even know in a city that's not even theirs. That was really great to see. It's also great to see the work that these charities are doing in Ottawa. And it just reminds me of like how grateful I am for my patrons, even though I'm not exactly good or very active on Patreon. So thank you all so much for doing this and helping out the people of Ottawa in some small way. And that's really, again, kind of what all of this is about, is trying to help people in places and organizations that were the most impacted. But isn't that just so unfortunate, right? That these people trying to do good in their communities were so negatively impacted for a month. And that was on top of the 1-2 punch of the pandemic, right? Punch number one was the pandemic. Punch number two was the Freedom Convoy that just made it so much more difficult for these groups and charities to operate. If your freedom is, impacting other people's ability to live and help communities, you're not really there for, Canadians and trying to unite people and fighting for freedom when you're negatively and so clearly impacting people's freedom there. But I don't want to necessarily end this on that bad note, right? I do hope that people also, if you're seeing this for the first time, feel free to chuck these charities some much needed love and support, right? This is just me showing off how awesome my patrons are, right? And how generous they are and how thoughtful and kind and considerate they are. This is the patron appreciation video. And that's what I want to keep the focus on. But it is still so unfortunate that any of this had to happen because of people allegedly, crowing about freedom and Canadians and rights and, we're trying to help people. My patrons have done more help for people in Ottawa than the Freedom Convoy ever did or ever will. But the fact that the Freedom Convoy thinks that they did anything meaningful or progressive or helpful or supportive is just so outlandish. It's definitely what's bothering me today.